Okay, I think we can start now. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mohammed Amir, the Regional Director of Operations in the MENA region for the International Code Council based in Dubai. Thank you all for taking the time today to join us in today's webinar on building safety, addressing the water conservation, increased efficiency, and reduced consumption. The International Code Council is once again pleased to collaborate with the Gulf Standardization Organization, GSO, to offer you this 1-hour session highlighting key aspects on water conservation from a codes and conformity assessment perspective. Once again, we aim through today's webinar to rationalize the concept and raise awareness on specific rates of consumption to achieve efficient and effective water use for optimum social and economic benefits in the region. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed speakers today who are joining us. From ICC, Mr. Dave Walls, Vice President of Business Support Initiatives. His responsibilities include overseeing the development of support products and materials related to sustainability, as well as domestic and international business development initiatives. Mr. Dave leads numerous ICC initiatives in the MENA region related to code development and training. From GSO, we have Engineer Bassem Salama, Technical Regulations Senior Specialist, with 25 years of experience as an electrotechnical expert in various consultation roles. Engineer Bassem served and still actively serving in multiple national, regional, and international committees through his work with GSO, contributing in the standardization work, research, and development of technical regulations. Before we start, a few points to keep in mind, please. The microphones are kept on mute, but please feel free to raise questions by posting them on in the Q&A panel on the screen to be answered as many as we can at the end of the presentation. Thank you once again for joining us today, and I would like now to hand it over to Mr. Dave. Over to you, Dave, please.
Thank you, Amar. As mentioned, my name is Dave Walls. I'm the Vice President of Business Support Initiatives for International Code Council. And today I'd like to cover an introduction discussion on building codes, particularly the plumbing and green sustainable codes, which is where you're going to find water efficiency. And we're going to discuss why water efficiency and conservation are in the codes. They cover fixtures and fittings in the code, as well as non-potable water use. All about water today. So one water, one future, that's for sure. So what is a building code? Once implemented and adopted by a governing body, it becomes a legal document that regulates construction of structures and buildings. It regulates the installation of fixtures, equipment, and accessories, and is the foundation for a family of codes. So you'll see the on the right there, the full, large set of codes. It regulates new construction primarily, although the code also applies to existing buildings during alterations or changes in occupancy, as well as additions. So if addition is a building is enlarged, it includes regulation of the codes. So what we refer to many times as a family or set of codes. And so as you look at the diagram on the right of your screen, You look at the building code itself, although these are all together, they're called building codes, plural. There is a building code specifically that talks about the structural and architectural provisions of a building in itself. And with that, though, there's a suite of codes or set or family. It includes the fire code, plumbing code, green code, electrical code, energy code, mechanical code, and others, actually, as you get into more specifically things like swimming pool and spa, things of that nature. So what are the purposes of codes? They really provide that consistent minimum requirements in construction. So when we say minimum, a lot of people think, well, that's really just kind of a minimizing things, but it really isn't. It sets that base. It provides that level of what we see in the first bullet there. That's based on protection of public health, safety, general welfare, and the environment. So, while it sets a minimum because anybody can go above and beyond what those minimums are in terms of your design and construction. So codes establish an agreed upon rational and consistent minimum level of requirements. Requirements ensure a practical balance between reasonable safety and cost to protect the life and property. So, there's many things you can do, obviously, to go way above that would cost a great deal of money. But is that practical? I think that's where we try to find that balance when you develop those minimum set of codes. And an inspection during construction is the best way to verify code compliance. So, code has to comply, and it really is an extra set of eyes. So you have the contractor, developer who's trying to build the code right or build the building right to meet code, to meet those minimum safety provisions. And inspectors kind of is that extra set of eyes to really help make that happen. What types of requirements are in code? So there are two types. There's the performance requirement, and the performance code or performance provision in a code is commonly used when the code generally tells what is to be accomplished or what is the intent. For example, a guardrail. A guardrail, it'll just say, needs a minimum level of resistance, if you will, so that people, you're pushing against it, they don't fall over on the guardrail. But it doesn't tell you exactly how to do it. So a designer has flexibility in designing, whether it's steel or concrete or whatever, to meet the code. However, a prescriptive requirement, the prescriptive code provisions really provides a specific information, charts, standards, tables, whatever, in which a material, method, or component must conform. The code limits to a degree the designer's ability to substitute materials. So again, if you look at a code requirement, back to the guardrail, it's going to tell you it's got to be a certain height, very specific, millimeters, and at a minimum. Again, that's the minimum. So it can be, I'll use American standard 44 inches, but you can go above that if you want. You just can't go below that. So it's very specific. Or you might, it might have for a handrail, it's got to be between 34 and 38 inches, and it can't be anything outside of that. So that's very specific. But again, how that's provided, it has to be, as long as it's within that limits, then it works. So what's the difference between a code and a standard? So a code, they're documents that are adopted, implemented, as we talked about earlier, it provides that minimum performance, and it's written in mandatory language. So it tells people what must be done. So it would say that back to the guardrail, it shall be a specific height, period. It's not may, it's not can be, it shall be this minimum height, or minimum lateral force, requirements. Whereas a standard are in documents that tell people how to achieve what must be done. So codes tell you where and when, standards tell you how to. Now the standards I'm talking about here are standards that are referenced in documents. And we all know there's a variety of standards out there, and they're generally voluntary. However, when they're referenced in the code, if the code is mandatory, then those reference standards become mandatory. If the code is voluntary code, then it all remains voluntary. So an example of, again, performance and of a standard. So when you look at 402.1, let's say a section within the code, it'll say quality of fixtures. So it'll tell you that plumbing fixtures have to be constructed of specific materials, impervious service, yada yada, and all porcelain enamel surfaces on plumbing fixtures shall be acid resistant. And then just two subsections down, you'll see where it'll talk about if you're using sheet copper in a fixture. Sheet copper for general application shall conform to standard ASTM B152 and shall not weigh less than 3.7 kilograms. So, so you can see kind of how they work together. So reference standards and codes. So in every code, they typically have a chapter that will tell you every standard that's been referenced in the code, where to find it, who promulgates it, all the information that you need to go and research that standard as necessary. So again, codes as a path forward, it really establishes thresholds. Establishes the threshold. And so when you think of a code, I mean, I think of it in terms of a car, for example, which we all obviously have or drive or been in. Cars have a lot of standards, how to build an engine, how to build wheels, how to build the seats, the frame, all the pieces that go with it. However, there needs to be some sort of code or guidance that tells them how to put all those pieces together. You just can't take all those and pile them in the middle of a garage and say, oh yeah, I've got a car. It's the same with the building. So code really kind of lays out that whole blueprint on how to put all the pieces together to build a safe building. And then when you do, you have custom code. So you can take a base code, but base codes really kind of lays out again that minimum. And then custom codes are created by countries. In the United States, I live in California, so California has its own custom code. They all use a base code as that starting point. Saudi Arabia has their own codes. The GSO is working on a set of codes for the region. And then again, standards, they power the performance of the code. And then you need to certify, train, and support all of that effort. And then ultimately, you have a global solution. So today, primarily, is why do we have water efficiency and conservation in the code? Why it matters? Well, the world runs on water. Water is the most vital natural resource on the planet. You can see all the bullet points here. It's necessary for human survival. It's a critical input. The average adult human body, has 50 to 65% water. It sustains the ecosystem and climates upon which, we're built and rely. We're putting more pressure on freshwater resources than ever. That's the biggest point right there. This established world population, I was going to update this, I apologize, but 2018 was 7.6 billion people. And there's only one water. And we talk about that, how much water do we have? The salt water on the earth is 97.5%. Generally, up until recent history, that's been untappable. I know with desalination plants, really has brought that around to help. But in general, 1% of the water of the Earth's water is usable. From lakes and river storage, groundwater, including soil moisture, swamp water, and permafrost. But a lot of that fresh water is locked up in glaciers and permanent snow cover. So again, and 71% of the Earth's water Earth's surface is covered with water. And you look at what's going on in the world. Where are the risks? You look at the extremely high risk of having water shortages. You look at the dark red points, and you can look around the world and see where lack of water currently is at risk. And this again, as the pressure for water builds, because population increases, that's only going to get higher. So, I talked earlier about the set of codes or family of codes. When you look at the plumbing code, that's going to be the primary location for where you're going to have, water provisions. Now, that not only covers health and safety, but it covers water efficiency and conservation as well. Governs material sizing and installation of potable and non-potable water supply and distribution, plumbing fixtures, drain, waste, and vent, and storm drainage systems. So on the green sustainability codes, which really goes above that, it also talks about potable, non-potable water use and distribution of plumbing fixtures. So code requires and encourages conservation of water used indoors, outdoors, and in wastewater conveyance. And it really doesn't matter the source, whether it's a potable water source, non-potable water source, from a creek, from the ocean, wherever, it doesn't matter. It encourages water conservation. And it does encourage the use of lower quality water whenever permissible. So water conservation and efficiency, provisions of plumbing fixtures. Not only that, it covers appliances, car washes, cooling towers, HVAC systems and equipment, and metering. So many times when we think of water, we think of, well, our faucets and our showers and that use, but it actually, there's much more, as you see, and the code covers it all. So fixture and fitting consumption, prescriptive table for many plumbing fittings and fixtures that really limits how much water can flow through or be flushed down in any particular cycle. There are detailed requirements for several types of products, and it references WaterSense or others. There are some, it depends on the region. Many countries have their own type of efficiency labeling system to really ensure that that a particular fixture or fitting is efficient and meets the performance requirements. And here's an example of a table. What you may find in code, talks about shower heads, lavatory faucets, kitchen and bar sinks, water closets, pre-rinse spray valves, all of that. So it really gives the maximum flow rate or flushing cycle. Again, appliances. Do you think of appliances? We're talking about clothes washers, even ice makers, food steamers, dishwashers. All of those are really impacted. And again, you'll see, I think this is the Saudi Arabia energy efficiency labeling here. And again, this is what you might find in U.S. manufactured labels. HV systems and equipment. So regulates water in hydronic closed systems, which is if those are the hydronic heating systems. They kind of loop through your slab in many cases and warm up the floor. Humidification systems, condensate coolers and tempering devices. And you can see the list there. Cooling towers, which is a big one. You can have very large towers sometimes. Evaporative condensers and fluid coolers. Wet hood exhaust scrubber systems, evaporative cooling systems, and cooling towers in particular. That they run a lot of water through it, and then they need to be, all that water needs to be put out and cooled because it picks up a lot of heat going through there. And then you need to have a system where it recycles that water, so you're not continually using good potable water. And water treatment devices, another one. How many think of that? Water softeners actually use water. They do soften, but they actually use water as well. Reverse osmosis water treatment systems, on-site reclaimed water treatment systems, including gray water reuse treatment systems. There are miscellaneous devices and systems. So commercial food waste disposers, you've got to use water when you're running those. Food service hand washing stations, car washes. So most car washes, the requirement will be to run the water into a system that would clean it and be able to reuse it as much as possible. Autoclave sterilizers, when you get into hospitals, of course, they use a lot of water to sterilize things, trap primers. water-powered pumps and film processors, just developing film. We've gone to a digital age now, mostly, so you don't see as many film processing as you used to. So non-potable water in plumbing code, so rainwater collection systems are key to saving water. Gray water reuse systems, reclaimed water systems, and other alternate water sources. I know these are, if you look at primarily for residents, for example, you can put out barrels. Gray water systems sometimes are useful, and you use a lot less, especially for irrigation. You can set it up so you can irrigate your plants. The one thing a lot of people forget to look at is there really is a water and energy connection. So there's a nexus between the two. And for example, I'm from California, so I'll throw that up as an example. Just the water-related uses account for 19% of overall California's electricity use, 30% of its natural gas, and 88 billion gallons of diesel fuel every year. So when you reduce, your use of water, you're also reducing sewer costs in many cases by up to 30%. And this is all huge in terms of when you conserve water, you conserve energy. So really, we're looking at, again, the water efficiency provisions in your plumbing code, your green code, your energy code. Really affects all your local plumbing codes, green codes, and provides even an alternate in many cases. And when we conserve water, and it's really a win for all. It helps the environment, it helps homeowners, builders, raters, water districts, municipality and government, suppliers, innovators, and green building programs. And as once said, as you see on the right, we shall all know the value of water when the well runs dry. So we want to keep that well from running dry, make sure we provide plenty of water for the future, and world just stays a better place. And again, thank you. And I'd like to turn it over now to Engineer Bassan and with GSO, and he will take it over from here.
There. So I'm still not able to share. I need access here. Okay, now I got it. Let me share my presentation to you. So, I hope that everybody can see my presentation, and good morning for the people from the US side and good evening for the people from the MENA side. So I will be glad today to discuss with you about one important thing in our region. And there was one interesting slide in Mr. Dave's presentation about the shortage of water in our area. You can see that the GCC countries and even the surrounding countries are in the world map for the shortage of water by nature. Thus, it is very important for us to have the codes, the regulations, the standards that can save water and make our water use sustainable for the future. And also, I would like to thank ICC for this opportunity to participate in what they call the Safety Month and Building Safety Month, and for sure for this important topic. So I have some few slides about GSO. I will just run through them quickly because it is documentary, and I think we will share with you this presentation. So just to save some time for the topic of my important topic, that is about the, I don't see my slides moving. Okay. So GSO actually is an organization under the GCC, which is the Gulf Country Councils. The GCC created in 1981, and that time there was a very objectives saying that we have to unify the regulations and to include that in the economic and financial affairs, commerce, customs, and communications. And at 1981, they issue a document called Economic Agreement, which were revised in 2001, and it is clearly mentioned that we have to establish a regional single market and to establish a custom union. So to have a very regional institute working to harmonize everything. And here our most important thing, the standardization activities. That's why GSO established in 2001, operated in 2004, and it is consist of the GCC member states, 6 countries, and also Yemen, the Republic of Yemen. Our headquarters in Riyadh, as you see in this picture, and you can see this slide about the GCC economic agreement, which we have driven our mandate of. Most importantly, as I mentioned to you, to have a common market, to have a single, a regional single market with one custom union, and also to facilitate the trade and remove technical barriers and to build all the products placed on the market against the essential requirements. That's why here the important issue to say that there is an interconnection between codes and regulations and standards. Codes try to regulate how you make your building safe. And by making your building safe, you have to use a safe product. So the regulations what I'm going to talk about, it is the regulation that allow only safe products to be placed in the market. Thus, it will be also placed in your building. So this is some of our strategic objectives, as we see that we are trying to help the GCC with their objectives and to participate for standardization activities. And as you know, standardization activities considers like standards, technical regulations, metrology, and all the things related to that. This is our mission and our vision. Just I'm running through. I will keep this slides for you later on. And this is our 6 countries. They are participated or represented by the participation of the what we call national standardization bodies, like, for example, SASO in Saudi Arabia and Moyat in United Arab Emirates, and etc. All these members are actually participating internationally in all the international standardization bodies like ISO, IAC, and others, as you see in this slide. So what I want to mention here that we and standardization activities do voluntary standards, and we do also technical regulation, which is mandatory, and we do also the conformity assessment of procedure. These 3 documents, mainly the documents that we are going to talk about it, but in particular a technical regulation that we are drafting now for the water conservation devices or tools. And this is some GSO figures. You can look onto it. And finally, as you see here, we have a lot of cooperation with international and regional associations, and especially, for example, today our contribution with ICC Safety Building Week, and we also try to be active in all the international and regional and national standardization activities. So starting my presentation about water conservation should be mentioned from the beginning, and I can say that we have in GSO a strategy built in 2021 up to 2025. In this strategy, our technical council, which is the higher council for all the technical affairs, mentioned 3 main pillars. One of them is to have an economic integration enhancement between the 6-7 countries and to try to harmonize the standardization activities. In that relation, we mentioned that we have some regulations that we are going to review the regulation in the different countries and trying to harmonize those regulations to be one regulation above the regional area. Actually, in the technical regulation process, we have some existing technical regulation that I will mention to you after a slide. And we have what we call a draft technical regulations, which is in the pipeline. Some of them are already notified under the WTO, the World Trade Organization, and some of them is still under the process with the GSO, let's say, technical committees. We have a lot of this, what we call sectorial technical regulations under construction, let's say. Some of them like going to cosmetics, medical devices, lifts, machinery. But today we are going to concentrate about the draft technical regulation for water conservation. This draft technical regulation is, as also what Mr. Dave mentioned in his slides, it is specialized for a sector of for the water conservation. Maybe you call it plumbing fittings, maybe you call it water devices. For us, it is the end of the supply of water. And this is the important, because when you supply the water from its end to the consumer, there is the water, let's say, conservation can be done, and to stop the water use with a high level. This products under this technical regulation is like 11 group of products, as you say. Most of them are the taps and the mixers, and also the sprayers, the bidet, the urinal systems, the flow regulators, also the flush tanks, and the washing room toilets. So how we regulate actually these products? In general, we have what we call a regional conformity assessment scheme. This scheme is applicable for all products to be placed on the market. So this is like general rules for any products to come in. And this system recommend to have a gradual change from making the standard mandatory. Instead, we are going to make some technical regulation with essential requirements mandatory that can refer to the standard later on, and can use the standard as the best and the simplest and the easiest, also fastest way to conform to the essential requirements. What we call it in a principle of presumption of conformity. So standards made by the private sectors and can be shared by the whole stakeholders, and then can be used as a presumption of conformity to conform to the essential requirements of the regulations. Similar case, Mr. Dave explained that if you have a code, the code will revert to the standards. And if the code says that this standard has to be used, then it will be a mandatory. But here in our regional system, we try to adapt most likely the European, new and global approach as a benchmark, and trying to adapt it a little bit with our regional requirements. So what I mentioned about some of the existing technical regulation right now, we have some what we call horizontal technical regulations, which is applicable for any products came in the sectorial technical regulation, which is the second, let's say, category. So general safety of products or Gulf conformity marking or notified bodies technical regulations are horizontal regulations already now implemented in place, but they are implemented only in two sectorial technical regulations, which they are toys for children and also low voltage electrical equipment and appliances. And later on, for example, if the water conservation technical regulation approved by our GSO countries, then this regulation has to be implemented with this all horizontal technical regulation, as we will explain in the coming slides. And here, if you consider that in any product placing on the market, we have like two market assessment. First assessment is happening before the product placed in the market. We call it pre-market assessment, and the other system can control the product after placed on the market, which we call post-market control. I can say most likely in the European countries and in the US side also, they are so much in the post-market control because they have a very good legal systems and a very good internal what we call market surveillance systems. But here in our Gulf region, we find that these systems are still not built enough with a high efficient tools. So we are trying to focus more in the pre-market assessment. So we are not allowing the products to be placed on the market without complying with the regulation from the entry point itself. Thus, there is a lot of roles that the producer of the product has to go through for first of determining the applicable technical regulation and conformity assessment bodies, then using a suitable notified body to conform the products with the tested standards and regulations, and to conduct this conformity assessment procedures and draw a technical file to prove that he did this conformity assessment procedures, and later to issue what we call GCC declaration of conformity, which make him very responsible about the conformity of the product. Later on, he can affix what we call the GCC conformity mark, and finally, he can put the product in the market and circulate it within the single market, which is a single market between the 7 countries, which they are the GSO member states. And this is here you can see the G mark symbol, which we are also going to talk about it later when we fix the labeling on the product of water conservation devices. In the regulation, the draft regulation of water conservation, it starts by making a very clear obligations of each economic operator. First, we have to understand who are the economic operators. They are in the technical regulation defined as a manufacturer, an authorized representative, importer, and distributor. Under these 4 names, you can name any of your what we call market names, like, for example, agent, or, for example, any other name. But finally, you have to come under one of these 4 categories: manufacturer, authorized representative, importer, distributor, and each of them have to comply with his obligations. And the most important is the manufacturer, because he is the one responsible for conformity of the product before placed on the market. He has to ensure the compliance. He has to understand the essential requirements and work on conforming to them. And here, the most important to mention about water conservation, that the essential requirements is coming from the maximum flow rates that we are going to show in the other slides. Then he has to make the conformity assessment to procedure and to establish what we call a declaration of conformity, and affix the consumption efficiency label with the GC marking on the products. Also, he has to continue tracing and monitoring the product after placed on the market to ensure that this product is still and maintain the compliance, and provide any information about malfunction of the products or non-compliance with the products in the market, and do the corrective measures. And also has to cooperate with the competent national authorities with any of these problems or informations came from the market. Finally, because of this, GCC countries are normally an Arabic-speaking people, so there is some requirements for the Arabic language, which ask the manufacturer to put his name or registered trade name and address in Arabic language, and also to provide the safety information combined with the product, and to use or to provide somehow, not necessarily as a hard copy, maybe as a soft copy, an instruction of use this product, and also to maintain a technical file in English, but if required to have some summary or some important information in Arabic, he has to work with the competent authorities to translate it to Arabic. Then we will move about the legal representative. Legal representative is somebody can be appointed by a written mandate by the manufacturer, and has to be only some few things which also shall be mentioned in that mandate. For example, he can keep the manufacturer document of conformity and the technical documentation on behalf of the manufacturer, to provide the authorities with the information, and also to cooperate with the competent national authorities. But in all cases, he could not, as a legal representative, could not draw the technical documentation, because this technical documentation is a conformity documentation and has to be done by the responsibility of the manufacturer only. And moving to the importer, which is the body placing the product on the market from the outside the GCC countries, not from inside. So this importer has also some obligations, starting by ensuring that he is placing a compliant product, because he has to buy the product from the manufacturer, and he has to request the manufacturer to do the conformity before placing the product on the market. And then he has to ensure that he did all the conformity assessment procedures, and he drawn up the technical documentation and has a copy of it. And also the product has the consumption efficiency label with the GC marking, and are combined with all the required documents in Arabic and in English. Also, to make the importer responsible about his obligations, he has to issue the importer declaration of conformity. And this document is actually a legal document to ensure that he already looked into the conformity done by the manufacturer, and he will be legally responsible with the manufacturer about any non-conforming products in the market. Also, the importer has a role to ensure the safety and monitoring and tracing of the products in the market, because the importer is actually a body in the GCC country, and he can monitor more better than the manufacturer of any non-compliant products in the market. And he has to provide this information to the manufacturer and to the component national authorities to be sure that all these products will be moved from the market and can be maybe fixed or do any correction action required to move any unsafe or complying product to the consumption rates of the market. Finally, we have the distributor. The distributor is actually the, let's say, the final step in the supply chain. He is distributing the product in the retailers and in the shops, and he has to be sure that all these products that he is dealing with are compliant with the necessarily regulations. So he has to verify the conformity marking, the required documents, and he has to verify also the safety information, the compliance with the requirements, and the traceability of all the products. So now let's move more about the conformity assessment procedures for this particular water conservation tools or plumbing accessories or fixtures. So we have in this draft technical regulation, which is available in our website. I mentioned in one slide the link for that technical regulation. There is an annex called type certificate, which is explaining how you can do the conformity assessment procedure for this product. This is somehow international conformity assessment procedure called Type 1A, and it is as per the ISO IEC 17076, which allow to do a type test certificate by a third party, or what we call a designated or notified body by GSO. The manufacturer has to choose freely one notified body from his choice. He has a lot of choices. I will show you a portal that he can choose any notified body from his own choice and do the conformity assessment procedure. Then the notified body will review the technical file from the manufacturer, how he did the conformity, and if he need any testing, he can do the necessary testing as required. And even if the manufacturer can do the testing in his internal lab, it is acceptable with some conditions. Then later on, he has, as a notified body, has to go through what we call Annex 2 of conditions of the maximum flow rate. I will show you these rates later on, and issue a type certificate and upload this all to the system we have here in GSO called GSTS system, GSO certificate of the conformity system. And this system will later on give a consumption efficiency label with a GC marking, and this labeling can be affixed on the product. We will see all this GCTS systems also in some of the slides later on. Then in the annexes, after he finished the conformity assessment as per Annex 3, we mentioned that there is something in Annex 2 called the essential requirements of water conservation, which is actually the maximum flow rates. And this maximum flow rate is actually driven from American standard, which is ASME A112 .18.1, which is issued, maybe last issue is 2012, but it is maybe issued long back. I remember there is 2009 and 2000, maybe 3 versions, but the latest version that we are following now is the 2012, and this version is actually also reaffirmed in 2017. And we took all the maximum flow rates from that standard with also some adaptation with the national and regional requirements. For example, for the bidet, we have the 5.7 liter per minute as a maximum flow rate, and for the bathtub shower head is 9.5 liter per minute. For example, for the urinary systems, they are measured by liter per liter per flush. So each flush, how much liter of water can consume. And thus the rating of the label are considered with this maximum flow rates. For example, if we go for our bidet example, if this maximum flow rate comes between 4.5 liter per minute to 5.7 per minute, which is the maximum limit, it will be given a 4-star. If it is given it, if the consumption of water is more than 5.7, then it will not be allowed to be placed on the market. This will be rejected from the borders, from the customs. But if it is between 4.5 to 5.7, it has to have a label with 4 stars. But if it brings more consumption of water, that means the water used is less than or equal to 4.5 liter per minute, then it will have a 5-star, and thus maybe the consumer can compare between different bidet in the market. If they have 4 and 5-star, maybe we encourage him to go to the 5-star products and can conserve more water. The same also for the bathtub shower head. The maximum maximum flow rate was like 9.5 liter per minute. But if the range is between 7.6 to 9.5, then it will take 4 stars. If it is less than or equal 7.6, it will take 5 stars. And after that, depends on this flow rates, and it depends on the table in Annex 2, the manufacturer by the GCTS system will have what we call a consumption efficiency label with a GC marking. So as you see, this is the design of the label that we are proposing, which is still, as we mentioned, is a draft. It's not mandatory yet. And it's mentioned here that if you have a 5-star product, then you will find the 5-star. If it is only 4 stars, you will have 4 stars in golden color, and the latest, the 5th one in shape or gray scale color, to mention that this product is less conservative to water. And also you can see here that it mentioned the number of the liters per or flush per the liters or the flush per so the liter per flush or the liter per minute. And this is what we call the GC marking. The GC marking is actually a QR code with the GC mark or symbol, and this QR code can be used by the authorities in the customs and by the authorities in the market surveillance to see the technical file information about the testing, about the conformity, declaration of conformity, about the manufacturer information, and to compare it with the product. So while doing the permission of the product to enter the market, they can use with a special access. However, still this QR code can be used by public and consumer. If they found the product in the market, they scan the QR code, and some let's say essential information given to the consumer, that this product manufacturer name and address, and the testing is done or not done, and if the product is fake or it's not really conforming and it's just only a duplicate product, they can easily by the QR code discover that. So we mentioned that this system depends also to use a third party because it is a type 1A certificate. So this why we are using what we call a GSO notified or designated bodies. These designated bodies are actually available in our website, but they are currently only for the applicable and existing technical regulation, which is the toys and the low voltage. However, in the future, if we approve the water conservation devices, we have to made another list of notified bodies for these products. These notified bodies are designated as per the international standard, which is ISO Casco standard 1725, 1720, and 17076. And these notified bodies are available in all over the world, and they need only to have a representative in the member states and a liability insurance. This is the website which giving a portal of a list of the notified body working in the existing technical regulation, the low voltage and toys. It's applicable for everybody. Any manufacturer of low voltage or toys can choose any of those notified bodies to do the conformity assessment and procedures for his product. Then I mentioned that we have the GSO conformity tracking system, which is a digital system we are using to issue the GC conformity mark and to issue the labeling and to issue, for example, the conformity tracking symbol. And when we mention this tracking system, we have to know that all the document now is uploaded on this digital system, which make the manufacturer and the importer and the customs and even the authorities, which make their work very easy and very smooth. So also the GCTS is generated by the system. The GCTS is something that I will show you in the next slide. The component authorities, for sure, they have the right to use all this system by scanning the GCTS, the QR code in the GCTS. Here, the GCTS, what we call it a GSO tracking symbol. This symbol is consists of the mark itself, the G mark, the GC mark, and also with a QR code. The QR code, as we mentioned, it gives an access to all the authorities for all the technical file information to ensure that this product is conform and has passed all the conformity assessment procedure. And you have to know that from a quality perspective, this is not a quality mark and it is not a registration system. It is only a symbol to track the conformity of the product as per the regulation. And you can also see the link here to see all the details about this in the existing system for low voltage and toys. The last part of my presentation is about how we coordinate and how we request the economic operators to participate in this technical regulation draft, because if the draft is done in GSO and implemented without an early involvement of the stakeholders and importantly with the economic operators, then it will be difficult and it will be really like a barrier of trade, and it has a very big impact in the market. So we are trying to involve the economic operators in the sectors with this technical regulations, and we are trying to notify them with this drafts through the WTO. And we did that, for example, for the low voltage and toys since in 2017 in Bahrain, and we did another economic operator meeting in Oman, which you can see the pictures here in 2019. And also we did an online meeting in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. So normally we are trying yearly to come and sit together with the economic operators in different fields and discuss with them those drafts and how they can find the implementation, what is the requirements, if it is really smooth or not. We are trying to early engage them in the regulatory process to enhance the implementation later on. And it is a very important also opportunity to mention that now we are also maybe the time of this presentation come in the exact time of arranging the fourth open day for economic operator, which is coming next week in 13 to 16 June 22. And I am giving you here a link of the registration if you would like to join us. This will be an in-person meeting and also can be it is like a hybrid meeting, in person or online. So if you cannot join us in person, you can join us online in the system, and we welcome you to join us even so in person or in online. This is the end of my presentation. I hope that it was clear to you, but even so, me and Dave and we are welcoming any questions or any clarifications that can help you to understand more. Thank you very much. So back to you, Amr, I think.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dave, Engineer Bassem. Thank you very much for the informative and comprehensive presentations that you gave. I think we have a couple of minutes for any questions, so we would like to ask if anyone has any question. We can unmute them and they can verbally ask, or they can type it in the Q&A. So if anyone has any question. Please feel free to ask. Yes, Mr. Rashid from GSO, I believe. Any questions? Okay, I think someone is trying to ask if there are any questions coming. We still have a couple of minutes, as I said.
So if there is if there is no any questions, let me just say that, for example, if you need any more information about this technical regulation, you can find it as a draft in our website. You can send us any comments on it before, because it's important for you as an economic operator if you want to know how to implement it. So it's your chance now to go through this regulation before it becomes mandatory, and to give us your comments to study and to review and to change the regulation, because once it is approved, it will be very difficult to change it later on.
Okay, so I believe with if there are no questions, I think this brings us to the end of the session. Mr. Dave or Engineer Basim, if you have any final remarks you would like to provide, please feel free before we end the session.
Yeah, I have no additional remarks. Just to thank everybody. Thank you, Engineer Bassam. Great presentation. And thank you, Amr, for hosting this.
Absolutely.
ICC is always available for questions at any time, so anybody can follow up with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And if there are any, if you feel like you would like to reach out to us, please feel free to do so. I've listed our contact details on the chat box, so please feel free to do so. We'll be more than happy to address any concerns. With that, I think this brings us to the end of the session. I would like to thank again Mr. Dave and Engineer Bassem Salama for taking the time today to go through the topics related to water conservation, and we look forward to more collaboration between both entities in the near future. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.